The vast tapestry of history is woven from billions of fragile threads, each representing a decision, an action, a moment in time. We live within the borders of one single realized pattern, but what if one of those threads had snapped? What if one pivotal moment, so etched into our collective memory, had unwound in a completely different direction? Dallas, Texas, November 22nd, 1963, high noon. Our reality knows this day as an indelible scar on the American psyche. A moment when a young, charismatic president, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, was stolen from the world. A day that transitioned an era of idealistic vigor into a period of profound disillusionment and a generation's loss of innocence. He was a symbol of hope, a beacon of new frontier optimism, standing on the precipice of major decisions that would define the rest of the 20th century. Vietnam, civil rights, the space race, and above all, the menacing shadow of the Cold War. As the presidential motorcade glided through Dealey Plaza, the cheers of the enormous crowd were a testament to the nation's enduring, if complex, love for its leader. The mood was electric, almost festive. Yet, beneath the surface of that bright Texas sun, the forces of history were coiled, ready to spring. The single, crucial, horrific detail in our timeline is the rifle shot, or rather, the multiple shots, fired from the Texas School Book Depository. The impact, the immediate chaos, the desperate, frantic race to Parkland Memorial Hospital. These are the images that define the tragedy of November 22nd, the sudden, violent end to the 1,000 days of Camelot. But we are here to explore the fragile, the improbable, the moment of pure divergence. What if the assassin's aim, for the briefest fraction of a second, was off? What if the Secret Service, perhaps slightly more vigilant, had forced the limousine to accelerate a heartbeat sooner? The difference between life and death on that day was measured in millimeters and milliseconds. The tension of that ride through the plaza was immense, a silent reckoning of the forces arrayed against him, both domestic and geopolitical. Kennedy knew the risks, the deep divisions his policies had wrought, the powerful enemies he had made, from segregationists in the South to hardline generals and powerful industrial lobbies. His internal struggle over Vietnam was reaching a critical mass. He had, in fact, signed National Security Action Memorandum 263 just weeks prior, signaling a preliminary withdrawal of 1,000 personnel by the end of the year, intending a full withdrawal by 1965. A commitment to peace that flew directly in the face of the emerging military-industrial complex. His vision, to end the war without escalating American involvement, was a radical, dangerous path for a president to take. So, here is our point of fracture, our single, most significant change. What if the second, fatal shot, the one that irrevocably altered the course of history, had been deflected or narrowly missed its mark? What if John F. Kennedy had survived Dallas and drastically altered the course of the Cold War? Imagine the scene. The motorcade speeds away, sirens wailing, not with a deceased leader, but with a wounded one. The immediate outcome is not the swearing in of Lyndon B. Johnson aboard Air Force One, but a desperate, worldwide vigil as President Kennedy is rushed into emergency surgery. The news flashes across the globe. The president is alive, but critically injured. The immediate global reaction is not grief, but paralyzing, absolute fear. Was this an isolated incident, or the opening salvo of a much larger, darker plot? Was it Cuba, the Soviet Union, a domestic coup? The immediate, direct consequence of Kennedy's survival is the preservation of his Vietnam withdrawal strategy. The momentum behind NSAM 263 remains intact. Without the immediate, immense power vacuum that placed the deeply interventionist Johnson at the helm, the planned phased withdrawal continues. The military-industrial complex, while powerful, is unable to immediately pivot the policy. They face the resolute, recovering President Kennedy, who is now, ironically, imbued with the immense, almost mythic moral authority of a man who has faced death and survived. He is an even greater political force than before. The global reaction to the near catastrophe changes the calculus of the Cold War immediately. Khrushchev, still reeling from the Cuban Missile Crisis, publicly expresses profound relief, recognizing that Kennedy, despite their profound ideological differences, is a known quantity, a leader capable of negotiation and de-escalation. The global fear of a war triggered by a sudden, ambiguous political assassination compels both Washington and Moscow to establish even more direct, fail-safe communication protocols. The hotline is no longer just a symbolic link. It becomes an essential, frequently used instrument of de-escalation, tested and proven in the crisis of the shooting itself. Simulated analysis from an alternative timeline historian might note, the shared, terrifying moment of the shooting served as a profound, albeit traumatic, bonding agent for the two superpowers. It was a stark reminder that the failure of political leadership, even by death, could lead to a cataclysmic, unintended global war. In a strange, horrifying way, Dallas provided a jolt of stability to the unstable equilibrium of mutually assured destruction. Lyndon B. Johnson, instead of becoming the architect of the Great Society and the unfortunate expander of the Vietnam War, remains the vice president. His formidable legislative skills are now focused on pushing the Kennedy administration's domestic agenda through Congress, civil rights, and tax reform. With Kennedy's immense moral authority, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 passes even more swiftly and with fewer legislative compromises than in our world. The first domino, the immediate withdrawal from Vietnam, triggers a cascade. By 1965, all significant American ground forces are out of Southeast Asia. The Saigon government, lacking the promised American air and ground support, collapses much sooner. The fall of South Vietnam, while a political defeat for the United States, happens without the decades of brutal, demoralizing conflict and the 58,000 American lives lost. The political and economic capital saved from this war is astronomical. This saved capital, in both material and human spirit, is immediately redirected. Kennedy, galvanized by his near-death experience, doubles down on the space race. He frames the moon landing not just as a victory over communism, but as a victory of the human spirit over chaos and mortality. The timeline accelerates. NASA receives unprecedented funding. The moon landing, instead of happening in 1969, occurs in late 1967. The triumph is immense, pure and untainted by the shadow of the ongoing conflict in Vietnam. It solidifies Kennedy's image as the visionary who truly delivered on the new frontier. The year is 1975. We are now 10 years past the point of divergence. The world is a drastically different place. The most glaring difference is the geopolitical map. There is no Vietnam War. The colossal loss of American prestige, the deep political polarization, the economic drain, all are absent. America, under a recovered and politically ascendant President Kennedy, who easily won re-election in 1964 and 1968, has focused its energy inward and toward pure science. In this new reality, the détente with the Soviet Union is deeper and more genuine. With the common ground established over the shared fear of the 1963 crisis, and without the immense pressure of Vietnam, Kennedy and a more pragmatic Soviet leadership enter into a series of crucial, deeper arms limitation treaties. They move beyond simply banning atmospheric tests to aggressively limiting the number of deployed intercontinental ballistic missiles. The shadow of nuclear annihilation, while still present, is less immediate, less acute. The technological landscape is also different. The immense computational power developed for the Vietnam War in our world, which led to the early, rapid advances in Silicon Valley's military applications, is instead channeled through NASA and the National Science Foundation. The focus is less on drone technology and networked battlefield control, and more on atmospheric and deep-sea exploration and civilian computing. Personal computing and the internet, while still emerging, have a distinctly different, less militarized origin story. Perhaps the ARPANET here is focused purely on academic and scientific sharing, leading to a much slower, but fundamentally more open-source evolution of the digital world. Who are the winners and losers? The winners are undeniably the generations that avoid the devastation of Vietnam, both American and Vietnamese. The American youth who, in our world, were consumed by the war and the counterculture movement it fueled, are in this world engaged in a more optimistic, but still socially conscious pursuit of space exploration and domestic reform. The losers, ironically, are the powerful elements of the military-industrial complex. Their influence is significantly curtailed by Kennedy's survival, his unwavering commitment to peace, and the political capital he leverages against them. They become a political force relegated to the shadows rather than the omnipresent shadow they cast in our world. There is a striking historical irony here. In our timeline, the very efforts to contain communism in Southeast Asia led to a profound internal destabilization of American democracy and faith in its institutions. The war, the protests, the social divisions, the Watergate scandal that grew from the paranoia it created, all contributed to a decline in American confidence. In this alternative reality, Kennedy's early, seemingly risky withdrawal, viewed by many at the time as a loss in the Cold War, actually preserves American moral authority and internal stability. The loss of South Vietnam becomes a profound long-term gain for the soul of the nation. The contrast with our reality is starkest in the cultural realm. This world is not defined by the weary cynicism that followed the assassinations, Vietnam, and the subsequent political scandals. The music, the art, the literature, it retains a measure of the bright, forward-looking optimism of the early 60s. It is a world where the government, despite its flaws, is still viewed by many as a vehicle for positive, sweeping change. It is a reality anchored in the belief that the government can solve major problems, from poverty to disease, without resorting to global conflict. The innocence, once lost, was instead tempered by the realization of human fragility, not destroyed by the constant specter of war. It is now 1985. A single day, a single fraction of a second in Dallas, has spun the globe into an entirely different orbit. The Cold War is not over, but it is vastly calmer, characterized by scientific competition and deep functional treaties, rather than a constant hair-trigger confrontation. One single moment, one decision to pull back from the abyss of war, one man's survival. It is a profound, terrifying testament to the fragility of what we call history. Our journey through this alternative reality demonstrates that the grand narrative of human events is not a preordained, unstoppable force, but a delicate structure, constantly being shaped, moment by human choice and sheer, random chance. The forces of the inevitable, the march of communism, the rise of the military power, are shown here to be not inevitable at all, but highly contingent upon the decisions of the very few. This altered timeline, marked by a swifter landing on the moon, a less militarized digital world, and the absence of a searing, costly conflict, forces us to ask the grand question: is this world, marked by a cleaner, less cynical political landscape, a better one? It is impossible to say absolutely, for every history, every reality, carries its own burden. But it certainly suggests that the defining traumas of our reality, the endless war, the political assassinations, the deep mistrust of government, were not mandatory steps in the human journey. They were choices, they were chances, they were the terrifying consequences of one bullet finding its mark. The life and death of a leader, the presence or absence of a single conflict. It reminds us that our own history, the one we woke up in this morning, is not a solid foundation, but a precarious structure built upon a million fortunate near misses, and that the peace and stability we enjoy, however imperfect, is the direct, fragile legacy of what did happen in the real world. History is not written in stone, but in sand, constantly being redesigned by the tides of the what if. But this is merely one possibility. What do you think would have happened if President Kennedy had survived the shooting in Dallas and fundamentally altered the path of the Cold War? What dominoes do you see falling next? Leave your own theory and counterfactual historical analysis in the comments below. If you enjoy exploring the infinite realities of the what if, the true historian's domain, then subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell, because history is never truly finished.